So, we're talking today about what it means to be human and to be a writing human when we have AI that can apparently write for us. So, I'm here with my research assistant, Cora Bidwell,
Hi.
she has been doing a lot of research on AI. And so, we want to ask AI some questions to see if it can also help us answer some of these existential questions that arise because of AI. All right. So it gives us a lot of information very quickly. But what happens if All right, so it's telling us that unlike artificial intelligence, humans possess consciousness and self-awareness. So that we have a different range of experiences to draw from.
Mhm.
All right.
I think that last paragraph is interesting. That it says, in contrast to AI generated content, human writing is deeply rooted in the individual's identity.
Oh, okay then. It does not have a personal identity. Often students use AI, or any writer uses AI to try to generate ideas, and to kind of use AI as a collaborator in figuring out what they want to say. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think that's definitely accurate. I work in the writing center here at Xavier, and a lot of times there will be students who come in and say, I haven't used AI to write my paper, but I did ask it to explain to me what Aristotle was talking about, or I did ask it to try and help me brainstorm ideas for my paper.
What advice would AI give to us human writers? Read, write, edit, revise, find your voice, understand audience, show, don't tell, be concise, embrace feedback. So these sound like the kinds of pieces of advice that we would give student writers, or that you might give writers in the writing center.
Yeah, it definitely does fall in line with those types of advice that honestly I would give. I think especially the ideas of embracing feedback, editing, and revising, those are really typical piece of advice that I've heard in my classes that I will give out at the Writing Center.
So I'm curious, and let's try this time. We'll see if we can come up with an idea, and then we'll ask ChatGPT what it thinks.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions we had is, what is the point of creative writing if we have AI? So what do you think? What is the point of writing creatively? It takes effort. You
Mm-hmm.
have to come up with a story or characters or whatever it is that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
poetry. What is the point of going to all of that work to create something if we could just have AI do it for us?
I think it touches on our desire to understand more about the human experience. I think anytime you're writing, but especially when you're writing creatively, you're able to make choices and, try and understand different themes, different typical experiences that people have as human beings that, maybe AI can pull on creative writing that it has uploaded, but it can't ever make something new with it. It can't ever expand on it. So I think when I think of creative writing, I think of that desire to know more about experiences, that desire to kind of push
Mm-hmm.
forward.
So, like, it's what the writer gets out of writing is part
Mm-hmm.
of that creative process. Yeah, I think that's what I would say as well, is that sometimes I think as student writers, especially, it can be easy to get into a mindset of, I have to do this in a certain amount of time and I have so
Mm-hmm.
much to do. But actually, that process of struggle,
Mm-hmm.
of actually taking the time to struggle with big questions like you're
Yeah.
talking about and to create something new, that does take time and effort. And there is something lost when you don't actually have to struggle to find the answer. You
Yeah.
don't end up learning as much about yourself or about
Mm-hmm.
being human or writing in the process.
It's like you were talking about pushing towards trying to find something new.
So, yeah, here is what AI thinks. which is a little bit different than what we've been talking about. One of the things I'm already noticing in our exploration here is that instead of kind of going deeper with answers, when you ask AI something, it kind of keeps regurgitating the same themes.
Yeah.
Like it's like, well, exploration of identity and cultural and social commentary. So there are some new ground covered here, but some of this we've already heard with a couple of our past questions that we've asked.
I think it's good at coming up with a lot. It's good at regurgitating a lot of information, but a lot of that information, like you were touching on, is pretty surface level.
Right.
Gets a little bit repetitive.
So if you just want to say something that's already been said and only capture the surface of something, then AI might be a good tool for that. But if you want to delve further, do something novel, then you're going to have to actually do that work yourself. So just like before, where we were asking our own questions and then getting feedback from ChatGPT, we're going to see what happens if we ask ChatGPT to invent a game for us. Game is more about a journey of self-discovery through language and philosophy. Well, that's pretty pithy. What a great game. Look at that. So here are some games that you could potentially play with ChatGPT. It has invented its own games for us that we could play here, and that we could play with ChatGPT. So, but this looks like stuff designed for humans. So that looks like fun. Profound existential reflections. This is ChatGPT's version of this. I think I would want a little bit more than this if I were playing this with actual humans.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would reward this any extra points.
Depth and novelty are not qualities that AI has. And in your research, would you say that was true as well?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think, ChatGPT, what it's doing is it's drawing all of its information from something called a large language model, or LLM. So it's not really going to explore further than the information it already has access to. Whatever it can draw from, that's what it will regurgitate. It's interesting because ChatGPT, it's not coming up with its own ideas, but the speed with which it can kind of draw from its vast banks of information, it means that you're able to have, somewhat of a conversation with it. And I did find it helpful to ask it simple questions like, what can you do?
Right.
What should your role in writing be?
Well, that's a good question. It's also given us lots of ideas for how we can be more deep and profound. So if any of our viewers are looking for some guidance there, ChatGPT has some answers. But also keeping in mind that AI can't do these things for us. These are all things that we have to do for ourselves.
Yeah, I think even if you were to ask, ChatGPT right now, can you help me make this piece of writing more empathetic or more authentic? It can try its hand, but, like you were saying, it's something that is kind of a quality of just human writers as opposed to AI. It can regurgitate advice.
Right.
But
it can't actually
help you there.
It can't show vulnerability in it or be authentic. Right.
I would like to see ChatGPT try to be humorous.
Right.
Or empathetic.
Right. So I know as students and educators, people are wondering how we can or should use AI tools to assist writing, to support student writing. What are some of the recommendations that you came across in your research?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so most of the recommendations I came across, and of course there were varying levels of whether we should adopt AI completely or whether we should completely ban it. But no matter which side the recommender was on, it all kind of fell under the vein of recognizing that AI cannot fulfill the writing that we want to be able to do as humans. So what we were touching on earlier of the fact that with human writers, you get things that are new, you get things that are able to delve deeper, that are able to think critically about different topics, where you just don't get that originality, you just don't get that depth of thought from AI. So, I have some different recommendations up here, and this would be specifically for writing classrooms. And they all, are slightly different, but they all fall under that umbrella of recognizing at the end of the day that AI cannot take the place of human writers, that instead we should be using it as a tool. So, in doing so, you can maybe increase expectations of what you want your students to do in the classroom. You can try and incorporate AI into classroom activities. You can require students to cite it or to acknowledge their usage, but that no matter what kind of avenue you take, it has to be something where AI takes a tool role in it, as opposed to AI taking the role of the researcher.
All right, thank you. Those are great recommendations. So, for people who want to use AI tools in their classrooms or who want to create good prompts to get good information back from AI, what do you recommend?
Yeah, so you'll see up there that I have some example prompts, so for lesson planning or for seeing potential student responses. But really the main piece of advice I could give for anyone who's hoping to use AI as a tool is to be as specific as possible. Like we know, AI can get very surface level, it can get very repetitive, so the most information you can give it about what you want to receive from it, the most helpful it will be. Because whatever prompt you give it, it will use that as sort of a search engine to then pull information. So, for example, if you're an English 101 teacher and you want to try and play around with AI, for lesson planning, you want to tell AI that, you want to tell AI what type of lesson you're looking for, what you want the students to learn from the lesson, really, again, as much detail as you can give it. So even if you're talking about, class activities, or even if you're at home and you want to kind of work with it there, you need to tell it that. You need to give it an identity of sorts. You need to give it context, a setting, as much as you can. It'll be very helpful. So if you're playing along at home and you want to do, existential wordplay with AI, and you do want to try and get as profound, as thoughtful a response from it as you can, then you need to give it every single aspect that you're thinking about.
So it's almost like you give it an identity, or you feed an identity to it and say, okay, if I were this kind of person, then how would I do this thing? Or how would I sound doing this thing? That's really interesting, because it talked so much before about identity and how important that is. And so because it doesn't have an identity, you kind of have to create one for it, and then it tries to mimic writing as that identity. Really interesting.